Hello, everybody. I'm here with Elizabeth today, and it's very exciting. We're here to learn more about how Elizabeth is showing up as a coach inside the Inspired Writer Collective and some exciting plans she has for the community and for those of you who are memoir writers. So, Elizabeth, share with us what you have coming up.
Well, the first thing that I've noticed and some of the biggest stuff that I've struggled through in writing my own memoir is that there seems to be very little support for the heavy emotions and the amount of space that you need to take when you're writing a story that is rooted in challenge and traumatic experiences. I half-heartedly joke that I have a trauma for everyone in my book, um, because of the diverse experiences I've had. And I started, as I've talked about before, with a 30-day program, writing challenge program, and it totally led me down the wrong path. It was rushed me through the process, and I would say I maybe have like 30 to 50% of what I wrote during that time period still in the book. Otherwise, so much of it has been relegated to either the trash bin or I might use it in some sort of, you know, literary magazine publication as a, short story or excerpt, or even just promotional material for my memoir once I actually get it published. But I don't want other people who are trying to find the right voice for their story, the right audience for their story, who have a really heartfelt message that they want to put out into the world. I don't want them to have to face the same struggles that I felt in trying to get my story out there. There came a point, about 5 months into the writing process where I really hit a wall and I didn't know if I was going to continue to write my memoir. I did ultimately come to the conclusion and just felt so strongly that my message was going to be such a benefit to other people that I was able to eventually push through that or come back to that after a little bit of a break away. But in going through the memoir writing process myself, I know for me, it was not something I could do within an established timeline. And so, any sort of coaching I do, any sort of courses I create, um, anything like that is going to be like self paced and long term, where people can take the amount of time they need in order to write their stories. Now, I say that, but I do have a course that's coming up that is within a 4-week time frame, but that's because that course is focused on the core elements of defining what the message of someone's memoir is, and then also creating the outline, that starting structure for what stories need to be written, what order they're going to appear in order to convey that message. But when it comes to the actual writing process, I just don't believe that time constraints can be placed on a memoir writer who is writing from a challenging experience.
What do you envision happening for the memoir writer after going through the 4-week program for you? What types of supports do you see having in place for them? Because we know that it's a long haul and there's a lot, especially with when you're navigating trauma in your life, to write those stories. What do you see for those writers?
So the objectives of coming out of the 4-week course, this is a very small group course. There's only going to be 4 spots at a time as I run this cohort. And so everyone's going to get individual attention to their story and come out of that 4-week period with a clear idea of what their core message of their memoir is, including the audience for it, and also have that clear and cohesive outline to start working from. Now we do have that broader community, so we already have the structure in place to provide those sessions for writing, for accountability, and also for feedback if that's wanted. but it can all be self-paced from that point on. So at that point, someone is already integrated into the community and they can write at whatever pace feels right for their life, the time that they have, for the emotional waves that they may go through. For me, writing memoir has been so beneficial. One, in seeing a new layer of meaning to my past experiences. Two, in knowing that I'm going to be able to help other people as I share this message. And three, the personal development that I've experienced in just going through this process and revisiting some of these challenging times in my past. I know, though, because I have been in therapy throughout the entire time that I've been writing my memoir, that I want to create space and support on an emotional level for these writers. There are days that I write a story and that's all I can muster for the day because it can be so draining. And so, any of these programs or any one on one coaching that I do for people is always going to have that at the forefront and making sure that, we're taking care of ourselves as we write these stories.
Well, and it's really great too that you're offering it for such a small group of individuals, because I know that sometimes it can feel scary to show up with your stories, especially if you're concerned about a big group. So having a small group is such a great way to nurture the process and to find the support, because it's great to have the one-on-one, but sometimes having the group and allowing yourself to learn from others is a
Mhm.
wonderful way. So I think that offering that for the memoir writers in our community and those who want to take part in what you're offering is wonderful. And how do you see yourself creating this safe space for these writers coming in, for those who still might be on the fence thinking like, I want to do this, but I'm still a little worried? What can you share? I know you shared a little bit about what you have with being in therapy yourself and working through that, but what do you see for creating that space for those who come into this group program?
Yeah, so I've been there, and the whole reason of having it as a small group is so we can build that sense of camaraderie. Because as I was writing portions of my memoir, I felt really alone in that. I felt very much like wondering if my story was too much. And to be able to do it in a small group where we can build that trust and that sense of support. And granted, in that course, we're not focusing on the specifics of the stories. So you can share what you want to, you can share what you're comfortable with, and you can keep to yourself what you feel like you need to, because we are talking about just the core message and then doing the outline. And so if you don't want to share your outline with anyone else, you don't have to. If you don't even want to take advantage of me offering feedback on your outline at the end of the course, I'm not going to require that. And then you can take that outline and you can go and then write all of your stories on your own time or in the time to write sessions. We don't share our writing in those sessions. That's just a time for you to show up and write for yourself. So you can have whatever level of engagement you feel comfortable with. But for me, it's been very helpful to know that I'm not alone in the writing experience, and that and normalizing a lot of those feelings that come up, especially compared to normal writing programs where you start to write something and then you feel like because of the emotional heaviness of something, you need to take some time away. I will have particular discussions as we move beyond the outline portion into a broader memoir support help in the community about how to handle the fears of retribution, how to deal with where you find the line between where your story ends and someone else's story begins, realizing that we all have the same right to share our stories. That person is welcome to write a book about from their experience and their perspective, but helping emerging writers find where that line is for them. I
Mhm.
found it for me in my memoir. There's certain health aspects of people in my book that did affect me that I won't be disclosing. There's certain mental health things with people in my memoir that affected me and played into dynamics that I won't be disclosing. And there are ways to figure that out and work around that. And if you need an outside perspective, if you want someone to help guide you through that, that's how I hope to show up as a coach. Not to tell you how you need to do it for your memoir, but to help you think through that process so that you can feel confident about how you're doing it in your memoir. Because my approach may not fit your story, and that's perfectly fine. But the thing is, I have learned how to come to my approach and how to feel comfortable with the level of disclosure, with potential name changes, with dealing with the fear of any sort of retribution of some of the stories I disclose. And that's the kind of support that I hope that I will be offering those who also want to start writing their memoirs.
So, those of you who are listening, I definitely encourage you, if you're interested in being a part of this memoir course, to go to our website, inspiredwritercollective.com, and get subscribe to our email list so that you get the latest updates for when this is going live for the first time. And if you're interested in speaking with Elizabeth and getting to know her more, and I definitely encourage you to do so, is to also check out, we are offering coffee chats. And so you can specifically request to have a coffee chat with Elizabeth. And I highly encourage you to connect with her. She has an incredible story herself. And I know she'd love to hear your story. So I definitely encourage you to connect.